With the TLX entering its 4th year of production, Acura is eager to extend the life of its sports sedan as long as possible while it readies its 2nd generation. The problem is, from its inception, the TLX always suffered from that major drawback of Acura's sports sedans, a general lack of sportiness. With that in mind, Acura has introduced a whole new trim this year, the A-Spec. Hi, I'm Mike Perkins from CarGurus, and this is the 2018 Acura TLX. Now straight away, if you were hoping that this means the TLX gets more power this year, you are going to be disappointed. The A-Spec has the same engine and transmission as every other TLX. What it does offer, however, is a substantial handling improvement. But before we get into that, let's talk about what we can see. Most obvious is this new grille, replacing the old shield that we'd all become familiar with. Here in the A-Spec, it gets a more aggressive bumper and lower ducts, and you'll notice special round fogs that distinguish it from other TLXs. Head and taillights get dark chrome trim, and the aero treatment continues through the side sills to the restyled rear bumper, here with A-Spec only 4-inch fake exhaust tips, rear diffuser, and a gloss black rear spoiler. Now, most of the marketing you're going to see around the A-Spec will tout how it has stiffer springs, more aggressive dampers, a thicker rear stabilizer, and sportier steering, and that's all great. But the big enhancement here is in these wheels and tires. Here they're 19 inches as opposed to 17 or 18 in other TLXs. And they're wider too, 245s as opposed to 225s. So what does an extra 20 millimeters of width get you? As it turns out, a lot. "20 millimeters doesn't sound like much, but that's nearly an inch, and an inch of extra rubber at all 4 corners can mean a serious improvement when you're trying to put down power through a turn. Couple that with Acura's super handling all-wheel drive like I have here, and the difference is impressive. To be fair, I was never really impressed with front-wheel drive TLXs. I just didn't see a reason to buy them over the Accord they were based on. All-wheel drive was pretty good, but it was never good enough to make me consider it versus the competition. And that was because it was always limited by those skinny tires. With these wider tires and the suspension retune, I finally get the TLX. But you're gonna say, oh, it's so underpowered and the competition is faster with fewer cylinders. And that's fair, but if that's all you're focusing on, you're missing the bigger picture. It's like I've said many times before, numbers are part of the story, but they're not the whole story. How a car feels while it's getting its work done is more important than how fast it gets its work done. And this engine feels great. 290 horsepower and 267 pound-feet of torque pushed through the 9-speed ZF transmission. The 3,700-pound TLX will get to 60 miles an hour in less than 6 seconds. And that's quick no matter how you measure it. Even better, it's able to meet the claimed 23 combined miles per gallon if you're not constantly thrashing it. And it's even possible to get better than the claimed 29 miles per gallon highway rating. Imagine that. It sounds good too. And even better in Sport or Sport Plus mode, and that's because they artificially augment the sound here and pump it into the cabin. One of my biggest complaints with the TLX. But one of my favorite changes this year is that you can now add all-wheel drive to any V6 powered TLX for just another $2,000. And that's great news because I can't really see owning a TLX without all-wheel drive. And previously, you had to pay $3,700 for the tech package just to unlock the privilege of all-wheel drive. Now this is especially true for A-Spec trims because front-wheel drive A-Specs, they only get the more aggressive dampers. They don't get the stiffer springs, they don't get the thicker rear stabilizer bar, they don't get the revised bushings, and that means that you're getting a lot less for your money, especially considering that all of these changes were devised by the guy who sorted out the NSX suspension. And it shows. I mean, you're not getting NSX levels of performance here, but everything is improved. The feedback and on-center feel is much better with this heavier and quicker ratio steering, and the turn-in is really responsive and predictable. Now, you're not getting any of that gross understeer that you usually get with forward-biased all-wheel drive systems, and the torque vectoring just gives grip to spare without you even noticing that it's working. I mean, this is the way that the TLX always should have handled. There are some interior changes as well. A-Spec trims get these sport seats with the Alcantara inserts and the thigh extender, and they're pretty good. Could be a bit wider, and maybe they just need some more side bolstering, but they're very comfortable. Even better, every TLX now comes standard with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay for the revised infotainment system, which loses the haptic feedback and is claimed to be 35% faster. It sure feels it, but I'm still not in love with the dual screen setup, nor the same old map graphics. This is one of two big caveats I have with the TLX. This is essentially a mid-cycle refresh, and the interior is still, well, kind of dated. Eventually it's going to get a proper touch-up, and that may be something worth waiting for. The other big issue I have is with the braking. Now, the pedal is nice and firm, and the TLX remains composed and even easily controllable, even during panic stops, but if you take it out hunting corners, you are going to notice some fade after a few pushes, and that's no good. And the numbers do actually bear this out, as the TLX takes 10 feet or more to stop from 60 miles an hour than the competition. Thankfully, that's not the end of the safety discussion, as Acura has made Acura Watch standard for all TLXs this year, and that adds forward collision warning with auto brake, lane departure warning with lane keep, and adaptive cruise, and that's a nice little suite of safety that they've got here, and they should be praised for it. That said, the auto brake did activate on me once from some spilled paint in the road, so take from that what you will. Otherwise, there's not a lot of bad things to say about the TLX. It's a bit larger than most of the competition, which translates into more rear seat legroom, though headspace is going to be a little tight for taller passengers. The trunk has 13 cubic feet of cargo space, which actually bumps up to about 14.5 with this little storage cubby back here. And the ride is mostly composed and quiet, even over rough pavement and bumps. What all of this means is that with the A-Spec, the TLX is suddenly relevant. It's what the car always should have been, and should be now, not just one specific trim of the model. But it does do it at a pretty attractive price. This one's $45,750 with delivery, and that's a lot of car for the money. For it to be truly performance-oriented, it would need even stickier tires, a better transmission, and maybe even more power. But it's up to you if you want to wait around for that potentiality and the inevitability of the interior redesign. For me, this is suddenly a worthy option in the segment. Hey, thanks for watching. For full details, just click the link in the description. You'll head over to CarGurus.com where you can read my full review. And for videos of some of the competition, well, just subscribe to the channel.